ASMR reading of William Lilly's Introduction to Astrology, published in, I always forget, I keep forgetting, originally published in 1647 and again published as a new edition in 1852 by 19th century English astrologer Zadkiel. I also apologize for any extraneous noises that we might hear from the road or from the radiators. Oh, and before we get in, before you doze off, please, to help support the channel, like, subscribe, and leave a little comment. Let me know what your zodiac sign is. Let me know what your sun sign is. That is the sign that the sun was in on the day you were born. That's the sun sign is the one that people usually refer to when they talk about astrology. But if you know the rest of your chart, let me know that too. Whatever you feel comfortable sharing. And without further ado, let's get into it. There are in the heavens several bodies which appear to shed their light directly on this earth, and also some others which, having no light of themselves, serve to reflect that of the sun, and thereby become visible to our organs of sight. The former are termed fixed stars, fixed stars, fixed stars, because they appear to retain the same situation or to be fixed in the same place. But the latter, being observed to wander, are termed planets. That is why in astrology, when a person refers to the planets, it does include the moon and the sun, because astrology is geocentric, because that is where human consciousness is, has been since the dawn of time. Well, since the dawn of humanity. Oops. And for those curious, yes, if someone is born on Mars, then the Earth will be a planet, and their chart will be Martian-centric. So, yes, or lunar-centric if they're born on the moon. The number and distance of the former are so extensive, of the fixed stars, that I shall take no further notice of them here than to observe that they are not much used in that portion of astrology which is denominated horary, and that those persons who desire to make use of them in nativities or their natal charts will find their right ascensions and declinations given with great accuracy in the nautical almanac for each year. In the appendix to this work, I shall give rules to ascertain their latitude and longitude by trigonometry for the benefit of such persons as may be curious to make experiments as to their influence, though I do not in general pay much attention to them when judging a nativity. Of the planets, and this is where we see some of the updates added by Zadkiel in the 19th century, because it references Herschel, or now today known as Uranus. Of the planets, there are Herschel, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sol, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, and Luna, the Moon. These characters have always been in use, the ones such as the circle with the dot inside, or maybe I'll do it so that it's directed towards you, or the Venus symbol, the circle, and the cross. The Mercury symbol, which is just like a Venus symbol, but with a little hat on it. of course, the moon, Mars. Now I'm doing it upside down, but you'll forgive me. These characters have always been in use and may, with the exception of the Uranus symbol, be traced to the remotest antiquity and their origin found among the hieroglyphics of Egypt. I wonder if that's true. But as the object of this work is practical utility, no more need be said on the subject. The signs of the zodiac. They are 12, each containing 30 degrees, thus making 360 degrees into which every great circle is divided. Every great circle, as if I love the idea that there are lesser circles. Or perhaps this guy's just really, really excited about circles. The northern signs are Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, and Virgo. And the southern signs are Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, or as it's written here, Sagittary, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. The first sign, Aries, commences the zodiac, its beginning being that spot in the heavens where the sun is when crossing the equator in the spring. And the latter sign, Pisces, finishes the circle of the zodiac, the latter end of it being that spot in the heavens where the sun is when he has gone his round and is again about to enter Aries. By referring to the annexed diagram, the student will perceive that when the sun enters Aries about the 21st of March, he proceeds northwards and increases in delineation till he reaches the Tropic of Cancer about the 21st of June, or the summer solstice. Yes, because Aries is the spring equinox. So Aries is the spring equinox, and the sun travels to Cancer during the summer solstice, according to tropical astrology. When he speedily begins to return to the south, and when he reaches Libra, he again crosses the equator about the 23rd of September, the fall equinox, where, having no declination, he causes equal day and night all over the world. He then declines away to the south, shortening our days in the northern hemisphere until he reaches the southern tropic Capricorn. At length he returns towards the equator and crosses it by entering the sign Aries about the 21st of March, where he again has no declination and gives equal days and nights. This is the diagram of the sun's motion in the zodiac. The space between the two outer circles may be considered as the line of the sun's motion. Then the sign opposite the name of each month will show where the sun is about the 21st of each month. The globe in the center may be taken for the Earth. Like I said earlier, that astrology is geocentric, meaning that the Earth is situated right in the center of the circle. The northern parts of which receive the greater portion of the sun's light in summer, and the southern parts in winter. These signs are divided into the northern signs and southern signs, like I listed before. And then we have the tropical signs, which are Cancer and Capricorn. The equinoctial signs, which are Aries and Libra. And then we have the double-bodied signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. They are again divided into the movable signs, or known today as the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. The common signs, or known today as the mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. And the fixed signs, which still retain their name today, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. And then we have the elements, the fiery signs of Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, the earthy signs of Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, the airy signs, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, and the watery signs, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. The student must become well acquainted with the above particulars, but especially so with the northern and southern signs, the former being opposite to the latter. By attending to this, he will readily come to understand the figure of the heavens and the relative situations of the planets. NB. What does NB mean? Note well, nota bene. Note well, the movable, common, and fixed signs are always in square aspect to each other, 3 signs apart, and the elementals, the fire, earth, air, and water signs are always in trine aspect to each other, 4 signs apart. And that is exactly what it sounds like. The square is a square with 4 right angles and equal lengths on each side, and the trine is a triangle with each corner being 60 degrees. The dragon's head and tail. The moon's north node is known by the character I don't know how to word it, but it almost looks like the Leo symbol, but there's like 2 circles. There's a circle on each side of the little loop, I guess. Termed the dragon's head, or the north node. And her south node is the same thing but upside down, termed the dragon's tail. These are also known as Rahu and Ketu in Vedic astrology, if I remember correctly. The former of these in horary questions denotes good and is considered of the character of Jupiter, and increases the good qualities of a benefic with which it may be found, and diminishes the evil of a malefic planet. The latter is of the nature of Saturn and does the reverse. In nativities, these characters have no avail and are not to be considered except with regard to the moon, who is found to produce good or evil when she reaches them by direction. There's an asterisk and a note at the bottom that says, these nodes are points in the ecliptic where the moon crosses from north into south latitude, or the reverse, which occurs twice each month. The part of fortune. This is that spot in the heavens which is equally distant from the degree ascending that the moon is from the sun. It is found by the following rule. To find the part of fortune in a nativity, add 90 degrees to the right ascension of the meridian, and it will give the oblique ascension of the ascendant. From the oblique ascension of the ascendant, subtract the oblique ascension of the sun, having first added 360 degrees to the former if necessary. To the remainder, add the right ascension of the moon. The sum will be the right ascension of the part of fortune. The part of fortune is always under the horizon before the full moon, and above the horizon after the full moon. Having found its right ascension, take it from that of the meridian above or below the earth, according as it may be situated, or take that of the meridian from it, and the sum or difference will show the distance of the part of fortune from the cusp of the 10th or 4th house. I'm a little chilly. I'm going to grab my ratty old robe. Do not mind. It's a little old now. It's a little old now, but we're going to live with it. It's clean. It's just ratty. Here is a chart that explains the mathematics of an example. It goes on to say, then, as the birth took place after full moon and the part of fortune will be above the earth, find the difference of right ascension between it and the meridian above the earth, etc. If the part of fortune be in the same hemisphere as the moon, that is, if both be above or below the earth, it will have the semi-arc of the moon, but if otherwise, it will have the opposite semi-arc, which may be found by taking the moons from 180 degrees. In this nativity, which is that of the Duke of Wellington, the semi-arc of the moon is 90 degrees and 57 minutes, which taken from 180 degrees leaves the semi-arc of the part of fortune 89 degrees and 3 minutes, 2/3 of which are 59 degrees 22 minutes, and it appears that the part of fortune is just 1 degree and 22 minutes outside the cusp of the 12th house. The part of fortune has no influence on the health or life of the native, but it influences the pecuniary affairs very powerfully, and also in some degree the profession or employment. It says at the bottom, in proof of this, it is evident that in the Duke's nativity the moon came to conjunct of the part of fortune in November 1834, so it looks like Zadkiel used their own example in this to be relevant to the contemporary, to their time reader. When he was appointed to the ministry, thus part of fortune is 58 degrees from the meridian and the moon 124 degrees and 29 minutes. The difference is 66 degrees 29 minutes, which arc of direction added to the right ascension of the sun at his birth, 39 degrees 21 minutes, gives 105 degrees 50 minutes, the right ascension of Cancer, 14 degrees 34 minutes. The sun arrived at this point at 1 p.m. on the 6th of July, 1769. I think people might be doing something outside. I apologize for any noise. Or 65 days, 13 hours after birth, which the Placidian measure of a year for a day gives 65 years and 6.5 months. The Duke's age when the event occurred. Take note, the ascendant came to conjunct of sun at the same time, which By referring to our author's rules for the effects of directions, it will be seen to cause such eminent preferment. The semi-arc of the sun is 68 degrees 13 minutes. Sun dist from, I don't know what dist means here. Sun dist from 4th house 1 degree, or I guess the sun's distance from the 4th house being 1 degree 44 minutes. The difference is 56 degrees 29 minutes, the arc of direction. To find the place of the part of fortune in the figure of a horary question. In horary astrology, part of fortune is merely a symbol and has much to do with all questions regarding property, loss or gain, etc. In this case, it is found by a more simple rule as follows. Add together the longitude of the ascendant and longitude of the moon, from which subtract the longitude of the sun. The remainder will be the longitude of the part of fortune. And it shows an example of the question. For a ship at sea, is it lost? I will not begin to try to translate this into language because I do not know how. Chapter 2. In the above figure, the angles and the succedent and cadent houses appear at one view. The first house embraces 24 degrees of longitude in the zodiac, in other words, from 0 degrees Libra to 24 degrees Libra. The second house contains 30 degrees, namely from Libra 24 degrees to Scorpio 24 degrees. The third house contains 36 degrees, that being from Scorpio 24 degrees to Capricorn 0 degrees, being 6% of Scorpio and the whole of Sagittarius. The fourth house contains 36 degrees, that being the whole of Capricorn and 6 degrees of Aquarius. The fifth house contains 30 degrees, that being from 6 degrees Aquarius to 6 degrees Pisces. Sixth house contains 24 degrees, that being from 6 degrees Pisces to the end of that sign, or Aries 0 degrees. Take note that the other 6 houses will be found to embrace exactly the same number of degrees opposite of the opposite signs of the zodiac. The 7th being opposite to the 1st, the 8th to the 2nd, and so on. If the student look for 0 degrees and 0 minutes Cancer on the 10th house in the table of houses for London, you will find the longitude of the 6 eastern houses as here noted, and of course the 6 opposite or western houses have the same degrees of the opposite signs on their cusps. This is merely a map to represent the heavens at any particular moment, such as when a child is born or a question is asked and so on. In the first place, draw 3 circles as in figure 1, and then draw lines to represent the horizon and others at right angles with them. To represent the meridian, thus will be shown the natural divisions formed by the rising and setting of the sun, and by his passing the meridian at noon and midnight. Each of these quarters or quadrants is to be again divided into 3 equal parts, forming the 12 houses. These are marked from number 1 to number 12, and it will be observed that the double lines 1 and 7, which represent the eastern and western horizons, and those marked 4 and 10, which represent the meridians below and above the earth, are the cusps or commencement of the angles. Those lines are numbered 2, 5, 8, and 11. These are the cusps of the succedents, so-called, or succeedants, I'm not sure, succeedants, succeed, so-called because they follow or succeed the angles. These houses are next in power to the angles. Those lines marked 3, 6, 9, 12 are cusps or beginnings of the cadent houses. So called because they are cadent, that is, falling from the angles. These are the weakest of all the houses. Thus, the student will perceive that if a planet and so on be in one of the angles, it is powerful. If in a succedent house, it is less powerful, and if in a cadent house, it is weak and incapable of affecting much either good or evil. Still really think it's funny when things are described as good or evil in astrology, malefic or benefic. Rolled to erect the figure of the heavens at any time. 1. Learn in an ephemeris for the year what was the right ascension of the sun at noon, at the noon previous to the required time, in hours, minutes, and seconds. An ephemeris is a journal or almanac in which the places of the planets, etc., for which day are registered. Our publisher here recommends White's ephemeris for all years before 1834. I do have an ephemeris of my own, but I don't really have to use it because we have Astro.com and other apps. To this right ascension, add the number of hours and minutes which have elapsed since that noon. The sun will be the right ascension in time of the meridian above the earth, or the midheaven, at the required time. Find the midheaven is up here, the cusp of the 10th house, typically. In some house systems, it is a different point. It can be in house 10, house 9, or house 11. 2. Find the longitude answering to this right ascension in the column marked 10th house in the table of houses, which longitude is to be marked over the line which denotes the midheaven or 10th house. 3. In a line with this, we found the longitude on the cusps of the 11th, 12th, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd houses, which copy out from the table and enter over the lines which denote those respective houses. 4. Having thus completed the 6 eastern houses, find the signs and degrees exactly opposite to each of them and enter it over the cusps of the opposite or western houses in the following order: 10th house opposite the 4th house, 11th house opposite the 5th house, the 12th house opposite the 6th house, the 1st house or ascendant opposite the 7th house, the 2nd house opposite the 8th house, and the 3rd house opposite the 9th house. 5. Having thus completed the figure as far as regards the signs of the zodiac, it now remains to place in the planets as they may be situated. The most distant from the sun is Uranus, or Herschel in this time, whose longitude is generally given in the ephemeris for each 10 days, and if the time of the figure fall between it, it must be found by proportion. When his longitude is found, write it in the figure Thus, Uranus is 13 degrees and 19 minutes in this example, just by the cusp of the house, which falls in the same sign in which Uranus is found. If the cusp be further on than the planet in the sign, place the planet outside the cusp. But if the planet be the furthest advanced in the sign, place it inside the cusp. After having entered Uranus, enter in the same way Saturn, then Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus. I think that's supposed to be Mercury, even though it's the Taurus symbol, and the Moon. To find the exact longitude of these 7, which is usually given for the noon of each day, find the distance they travel in longitude between the 2 noons preceding and succeeding the time of erecting the figure. And then take the proportional part for the time after the previous noon and add it to, or if the planet be retrograde, subtract it from the planet's longitude for the previous noon. 6. Find the longitude of the north node or the dragon's head in the same manner and enter it accordingly, and place the south node or dragon's tail in the sign and degree and minute exactly opposite thereto. 7. If it be a horary question, calculate the place of the part of fortune and enter it accordingly, when the figure of heaven will be complete. But if it be a nativity, you must calculate the part of fortune according to the rule given, first having prepared a speculum. I don't know about that. Or table of data, as taught in Chapter 9 of the Grammar of Astrology. Chapter 3. The figure of the heavens, of the aspects. The figure of the heavens being erected, it now remains to observe how the planets are situated as regards each other, or in other words, how they are aspected. And first, of the zodiacal aspects, there are as follows: the a semi-sextile or 30 degrees, a semi-square or 45 degrees, a sextile or 60 degrees, a quintile or distance of 72 degrees, a square or quartile 90 degrees, a trine or distance of 120 degrees, a sesquiquadrate or square and a half 135 degrees, a biquintile or double quintile 144 degrees, and an opposition 180 degrees. I hope you don't mind the church bells. I'm looking further down and I'm seeing that a conjunction is present and marked the same way it is today. Good aspects are the semi-sextile, sextile, quintile, trine, and biquintile. Evil aspects are the semi-square, square, sesquiquadrate, and opposition. I have to keep on looking up the NB meaning. Note well. Take note, the conjunction marked thus, sort of like a Mars symbol without the arrow, it just has the line. As when 2 planets are in the same degree and minute of the zodiac, when it is exact, it is very powerful and is called a partile conjunction. But if within the planet's orbs, it is called a Platic conjunction and is less powerful. To know whether it should be considered at all, the orbs of the 2 planets should be added together and 1/2 the sum taken. If the planets are beyond that distance, they are not even in Platic conjunction. The same holds good with regard to other aspects. There are a good number of astrologers who only consider conjunctions if they are very close in orb. Some people may consider a 10-degree orb, others will not. It also depends to some astrologers if the planets are close together to begin with or if they're very far away. The orbs of the cusps of the houses are 5 degrees, so that if a planet be 1/2 its orb and 5 degrees or more distant from a house, it is not in aspect to that house. The same if the aspect of the planet fall beyond that distance from the cusp of any other house. Orbs of the planets. This is where it shows the number of degrees apart a planet must be in order to be considered for an aspect. So for Saturn, it's 9 degrees, 9 degrees for Jupiter, 7 degrees for Mars, 15 degrees for the Sun, 7 degrees for Venus, 7 degrees for Mercury, and 12 degrees for the Moon. Take note that Uranus has had no orb of operation discovered, but I think it may safely be considered as 7 degrees in all horary figures and other charts, I guess. Of mundane aspects, these are formed by the houses in horary astrology and by the semi-arcs of the planets in nativities. Thus, a semi-sextile is 1 house, a semi-square and a half, a sesquiquadrant, a semi-square is 1 house and a half, a sextile covers 2 houses, a square covers 3 houses, a trine 4 houses, a sesquiquadrant 4.5 houses, and an opposition 6 houses. The third of a semi-arc is a semi-sextile. The half of a semi-arc is a semi-square. The 2/3 of a semi-arc is a sextile. The whole semi-arc is a square. And 1/5 less than the semi-arc is a quintile. The whole semi-arc and 1/3 more is a trine. The whole semi-arc and half more is a sesquisquare. The 1/10 part of a semi-arc added to a sesquiquadrant is a sesquisquare. The 1/10 part of a semi-arc added to a sesquisquare is a biquintile. I can't do this. I can't keep going like this. Note well, the entire arc of a planet, or double the semi-arc, will not give the measure of its distance from the opposite point of its place, but if the 2 semi-arcs of a planet, both diurnal and nocturnal, be added together, they make 180 degrees, an opposition aspect. Of parallels. The zodiacal parallel is when 2 planets have the same amount of declination from the equator. It is the most powerful of all aspects, but it is not generally used in horary astrology. The mundane parallel is an equal distance from the meridian. It is used by some horary astrologers when any of the above aspects are formed between the planets. They are found to have a mutual influence or action on each other, according to the nature of the aspect. For example, if the Sun be 60 degrees or sextile from Jupiter in any figure, it denotes that the person signified by the Sun is under the benefic influence of the benevolent Jupiter, and shews success, or shows, it's SHEWS, but I think in the way this is written, it's supposed to be shows, and shows success according to the nature of the question. In nativities, it causes good health and good fortune in life. But if the sun be 90 degrees or square from a Saturn, it shows discredit, a failure of hopes, etc. A failure of hopes and the like in a question. And in a nativity, it produces much sickness to the native and also misfortunes to his father. This was verified in the nativity of Napoleon Bonaparte's son, who was verified in the nativity, who was born at 9 hours 15 minutes a.m. on the 20th of March in 1811, when the sun was in 28 degrees and 53 minutes of Pisces, and Saturn was in 26 degrees 28 minutes of Sagittarius, just 92 degrees 25 distant from each other. This very close square aspect of the Sun and Saturn caused great trouble to the native through his father's misfortunes, and as the Sun was the heilig, produced a consumptive disease and early death. It is remarkable that his father's troubles began immediately after his birth, and it will always be found in the nativity of a child that the fortune of its parents may be ascertained thereby until the birth of another child. If, for example, the child have evil planets in the 4th house, its father will be more or less unfortunate until the birth of another child, when, if that other have Jupiter and Venus in the 4th house, the father's affairs will become more fortunate. So very beautifully do the nativities of parents and their children sympathize together. That is so funny. So if things are just going wrong for you, have another kid, you know, that kind of gives credence to people who have children to save their marriage, and that's very, very amusing to me. But that is it for now. In the next one, we will take a look at chapters 4 and 5, maybe a bit more, but I'm not quite sure yet. I hope that you have drifted into a relaxing state of peace and slumber. And if not, I hope that you at least feel a little bit better or more knowledgeable after this. Again, if you have not, please like and subscribe, and I will see you later. Bye.